Well, here we are again. Good morning. Yeah, it is a foggy morning in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Cloudy and foggy. And I've had breakfast. I'm still enjoying my coffee. I'm all ready. I'm actually wearing a new top. It came in a Dia box that I received a while ago and was never notified I received it until I received a notification from Dia that I'd been charged $215 for the package. Fortunately, I liked all the outfits they sent me with the exception of one, and I'm waiting to hear back to see if they'll allow me to exchange a pair of jeans, which were just a size too big. It turns out that I could have actually went with like a size 20 in them. They were a size 22, and I could have went with a size 20. Damn it. So I'm waiting to see if they'll actually let me exchange them, because they are nice jeans. I don't have a problem with them. But I actually wore a new skirt, blouse, and pendant necklace out last night. And the reason I was out last night was a friend of mine was actually having his first official gallery showing, a small gallery in Mechanicsburg, and he was showing like 30 of his paintings he did. And I told him that there was one painting he had there, which was a big painting. And the minute I saw it, I liked it. It was called All the Holes to Fill Albert Hall, or something like that. And it was a red background with all these blue and different colored spots on it, holes. I really like it. I like stuff like that. It was $400, and unfortunately I don't have an extra $400 just sort of laying around these days, but I told them, if you don't sell that piece and I get back to work sometime soon, hold it for me, because I will buy that off of you, because I do like it. So we'll see what happens. So, how has my week been? Well, you've probably noticed that once again I have not written anything. I'm still finding myself in a position where getting back into the novel is extremely hard. I'm still feeling a bit of stress, of pressure, but the depression has subsided. Well, almost considerably. Wednesday, I was kind of a mess. Wednesday was one of those, I'm going to lay around and cry all day. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. I laid around and cried all day, for the most part, or slept. So when I wasn't sleeping, I was probably crying. And I remember I posted a picture at like 7 p.m. saying, should I get dressed and go to practice? And a couple of people told me, yeah, get off your butt and go dress. So I went to practice, and I actually had a great time. Because one, it was a small group. We only had 8 people show up because the weather was kind of sucky all day long, and some people couldn't really get out of their areas due to Pennsylvania not taking care of the roads real well. But and then we got to the rink, and there's a big puddle of water right in the middle of our track because the roof was leaking. So we had to mop that up and put a bucket under the leak to catch the dripping, which meant we couldn't really do pace lines and stuff on the track. We had to do everything on the big track. So we finally got to the point where our coach, Roxy, she says, okay, let's do some hitting. Let's do some hitting and blocking. And we practiced passive blocking and active blocking. And passive blocking is when you kind of do everything you can to stop the person behind you without really hitting them. You get down in a crouch, you stick your butt out, or you spin around and you get one leg back to brace you, and you get your shoulder into them. But it's basically, you do everything short of hitting them to keep the person from moving forward, and you use it on jammers. Whereas active blocking is the art of, I don't know why they call it active blocking. I guess because it sounds better than hitting the shit out of someone. I don't know if I probably still don't have it. They're almost gone. But I was working with one of the new women, and we were just smacking the hell out of each other. We were doing shoulder hits, and we were just smacking the hell out of each other. And she hits hard, and I actually kind of held back. I hit her once kind of hard, probably about 70% or so, and I put her down. So I told her, I'll go easy on you. But I did knock her down once. She actually knocked me down once. So she hits pretty good. It was fun. It wasn't fun when we were doing a fast pace line and we had to do laps around to catch up with the pack. And for some reason I couldn't do crossovers. Probably because I felt like my skates were wobbling all over the damn place, which they were. So yesterday I cleaned off all the wheels and the bearings, and I retaped the toes and everything else. And I have 6 days. Actually, if I work it right, I have 7 practices in the next 2 weeks to certify. And I believe the one thing I really need to get to certify is my 27.5. I can do a plow and stop in 4 seconds if I really jam it. But it's at 27.5. Now, fortunately, one of our members, because her birthday's coming up at the end of February, she actually rented out the rink this upcoming Tuesday. So we have the rink basically to ourselves to do whatever we want. And she said it probably would be a good time for everyone to work on our 27.5s. And I'm going to do that. In fact, one of our NSOs, Burlesque, is going to show up, and she said, I will time anyone who wants to do a 27.5. So I am going to probably go to Open Skate tomorrow, work on crossovers like mad, and then try to work on crossovers like crazy on Monday, and then Tuesday, work on crossovers, and if I feel like I'm confident enough to, work it out, I'm gonna do it. I've got a plan in place of how to determine whether or not I'm actually getting 27.5 speed or not. But we also, Tuesday, we might actually be playing some music, so trust me, practice goes a lot easier and it's a lot more fun when you have music. The one time I have skated a 25.5 was done on a Saturday morning down at York in a pack skate. We were doing a 40 laps in 10, and we actually did 40 laps in like 8 minutes. Right, I was told right around 8. So when you work that out, it's like a 25.5. And we did the majority of that to Smells Like Teen Spirit. And everybody was just getting, pumped up and they really were. They were just like, oh man, let's rock and roll. So I said, can we have some music? And the one who's running it out said she's got a speaker. I think she has a Bluetooth speaker similar to mine. So I'm going to double check on that. I'll bring my speaker, and if we can do something and hook them up and maybe get some, like sound going, we could play some music. I doubt very much if you're going to be able to hear anything out of my speaker with all the skate noise, because it gets loud. But we have the rink for 2 hours, and I am damn sure going to use it. I really am. I'm going to use it. I have to. The reason I only have like 7 practices to certify to get this 27.5 down is that the registration for our March 18th bout ends on March 1st, and I've already missed the registration deadline for the Battle of the Freshies, which was something I wanted to go to so bad, and I could not certify during the month of January. So I missed that, and I have said I do not want to miss this March bout. It will kill me if I don't make this March bout. So I am going to do my damnedest to skate 27 laps in 5 minutes. I mean, I don't have a choice at this point. It is like, it's do or die time. So I have to do this because it's like, please tell me this is the only thing I need to certify so I can get it the hell out of the way and, just do it. So, and then if that happens, it's going to be like, register my name, register my jersey number, and sign me up for this March bout, and then I've got a month to get bout ready. So, which I will do. Oh, Christ. But I was told that when working, we were doing pretty good. We were doing a good job blocking each other, bracing each other, blocking each other. It was a lot of fun. I love that aspect. Tuesday night, we were doing stuff like, 15 minutes of knee drops, which after a while, my thighs at that point, I had already been skating for 3 days straight. My thighs at that point were just like rubber. And see, that's the thing. And that's the thing that my last coach told me I needed to work on, was the fact that my muscles don't recuperate as quickly as the muscles of, say, a 25 or 30-year-old woman. They tend to take a little bit longer. So if I'm doing 3 or 4 days of skating in a row, I'm going to have a considerable amount of thigh muscle fatigue that's not going to go away. And Monday night, you would have only learned this if you were watching my Facebook page. But the Monday before that, we lined up, we got everybody, and I was like, okay, we're going to do 40 laps in 10. So we skated 40 laps, and I think we did it in 10:40 because we had the Freshies with us, and we had to slow up. So then we took a minute rest, and then my coach was like, okay, who thinks that they can do the 10? Who thinks they didn't have a problem doing the 10 and 40? Who thinks they had a problem? So all the new Freshies go off to the big track, and we go on the Wooftada, and our coach is like, guess what? We're going to do it again. So we skated 40 more laps. And I skated as hard as I could for 27 laps. When I hit 27, all of a sudden I just gave out. I mean, I was on the edge of holding on. And I ended up finishing a lap down, but I finished. So if you're keeping track, that's 80 laps. The most I had ever skated up to this point in terms of total lappage was 75 laps, which we did one night on a Wednesday when there was a board of directors meeting. And there were 3 of us who skated 75 laps because it was just skate 75 laps. I still remember that because one of the girls, she starts giggling. She goes, you don't really mean that, do you? And then she stopped. She goes, you mean it, don't you? And our coach was like, yes, skate 75 laps. So we skated 75 laps. And at that time, I actually had to stop a couple of times because my back was killing me. But I made it as far as 50 laps before I died, and then I got up and I skated another 30 laps and stretched my back out, and then skated the last 20 without stopping. This time I skated at all, but I was just like, ugh. Then we worked out. We did a lot of working out, paceline work, and we did suicides, and we did follow the ref's hand signals stuff. And then Roxy's like, okay, all of you that skated on the Wooftada for the 40 and 10, get back on the Wooftada. All of you who didn't get on the big track, guess what we're going to do? And she had to skate another 40 and 10. This time I made it as far as almost 20 laps, and I gave out. but I didn't stop. And I was like 2.5 laps down from the pack, but I finished it out. I just said, I am not stopping. I'm finishing this out. And I did all 40, which is more than one of, I won't mention any names, but one of the freshies didn't quite finish. And I'm one of the freshies who was on the Woofed It Up. And I lapped her a couple of times. And she's younger than me, so I felt pretty good about that. But yeah, if you're keeping track, that's a total of 120 laps, which is the most I've ever done. That works out, in case you're wondering, that works out to 4.15 miles or 6.6 kilometers if you're metrically inclined, that we skated that night. And which we did in a combined time, probably for the pack itself, we did it in less than 30 minutes. It probably took me right around 30 minutes to do all 120 laps. So I skated 4.15 miles / 6.6 kilometers in 30 minutes. The really surprising thing was, when I got home that night, my thighs were just like screaming. And I thought the next morning I was going to wake up and I was going to be hobbling around like an old woman. And surprisingly, it wasn't that bad. But then we get to freshie practice and it's like knee drop, knee drop, knee drop, knee drop, knee drop, knee drop. And knee drops are a bitch because you have to drop down to one knee and then pop right back up to your skates. And we were doing alternate, and then we were like knee drop, which I find almost impossible to do when my legs are fatigued. I just don't have the energy to go drop, and then get back up. So I was dying. Double leg knee drops, I wasn't having a problem with, but single drops, we were just like, and that went on for about 10 minutes, and I was dying. Actually, knee drops probably kill me more than anything else. So, when I got home that night, I was a little upset because it's like I need to be working on something to help me certify, and I'm spending 15 minutes doing things that I already know how to do. Plus, I pulled a muscle in my back while we were doing strength training, and I pulled a muscle in my back, and I was like, oh, I was in a lot of pain, and I was limping out of the rink that night. It was not a lot of fun, but much better. I'm developing a positive attitude. I'm like, if you really push yourself, and I'm thinking maybe on Tuesday night I can get somebody to pace me. If I can get someone to pace me, that's what they call getting a rabbit, and you chase the rabbit. And if they can do it 27.5 in, say, like 4 minutes and 52 or 53 or 54 seconds, and you're only like 3 seconds behind, which on that track is actually like about a third of a lap behind. If you can do that, you've got it, That's what I'm hoping for. So here's really 7 practices. I have to do this. I really do. I mean, this is like one of those things that it's, get or shit time, and I got to do it. So it's time to shit. So I'm looking forward to Tuesday night. I mean, I'm probably going to go to Open Skate tomorrow and work on speed and work on my crossovers, because when we were doing the skate around, we had to actually come from the back, skate all the way around the big track, which is about 300 feet, mind you, and then pass the pack again and come up to the front. And that usually ends up taking you like 3 or 4 laps. And I had great speed on the straightaways. I mean, I was killing it. But the problem was I would go into the turns and I felt like I was going to wipe out, and I couldn't do crossovers. So I was losing a lot of speed in the turns, and I really need those crossovers. That's what's killing me. So here it comes. I gotta do this. I can do crossovers on Open Skate. I go there and I've done crossovers time and time again. And it's like, if you ever saw, I don't know if I ever posted the tape, but I did a tape where there was 4 of us from the team actually doing a pack skate, and we were skating through the crowd. We were doing a pace line through the crowd, weaving. I'll have to see. I don't think I ever posted it. And we were moving at a rate of about 29 seconds a lap, which sounds slow until you see the crap we had to skate through. It was a huge crowd, and we were skating through them. So, we're just like... But the following week, a friend of mine from the team and I were skating, and I figured out our lap times, and we were actually doing about 20 seconds a lap on the track we were on. That was actually pretty good, because we were averaging probably 250 feet a lap. So we were doing pretty good. And it wasn't exhausting. It wasn't exertive. So what about riding? Enough of this roller skating bullshit, right? We're sick of hearing about it, Cassie. Like I said, I haven't been able to write much, but I started actually in my head working on some scenes, and one of the scenes has to do with something that's already happened in the Sea Level novel. And it deals with Annie and Carrie's new roles with Rapid Response and Air Assault. And I'm thinking, what are the chances that they could get out there and have to do something? So I've actually been working on a scene like that, where they do get called out because of something that's been going on. And I think that would be a good idea to show that, because it does sort of show a little bit in better detail of how the school handles responses. Because let's face it, everybody wants to kill those little witches. There are bad guys out there who want to kill the little witches, who are not getting to be not so little anymore. My kids are all getting all grown up. Won't be long before they're having baby witches. Yeah, that's the thing. Won't be long before, they're talking about having baby witches. I think I've already sailed on that boat. Yeah, Annie's talked about having baby witches. Carrie, Carrie's in a unique position, because he can talk about having baby witches and she can talk about having them too. That's probably something they need to check on. I would imagine when Coraline was getting all her scans, and they can scan everything in your body. They know what the hell's going on in there. And she probably picked up on the fact that female Carrie has eggs in her ovaries, which means female Carrie can be a mommy. Mommy Carrie. Boy, won't Carrie's mother be proud of that one when she finds out. Mom, I'm pregnant. Oh, so you got Annie pregnant? No, I'm pregnant. No, I'm the one who's pregnant. Annie got me pregnant. About that time, her head explodes. Because it has been stated that female witches do have the ability, using magic, to get another woman pregnant. Shit happens. Men can do the same thing too. If you are good enough with transformation magic, men can do the same thing too. Yeah. Yeah, they can. There are ways it can be done. I think it was actually determined back in like the 60s or the 70s that it actually was possible. It would actually be possible to kind of like transplant a womb into a guy. This is back when we thought we'd be able to transplant anything and not run into any issues. But you would be able to transplant a womb into a guy and have them carry a baby to full term, at which point they would just remove it by cesarean. Because, no birth canal. So it ain't coming out that way, but they would just remove it by cesarean. But like I said, that was back in the days when we thought we could transplant anything. Now, nowadays, we actually have had womb and vaginal transplants. And I know that there have been a couple of women who have had womb transplants who actually did get pregnant. I don't believe they carried the baby to full term, however. I believe both of them had miscarriages. I'd have to do some checking on that. I know there was a Saudi woman who was part of that pilot program, and she was like 3 months pregnant when she miscarried. So we're getting to the point where you can do it. And the one thing they're looking at is actually cloning transplant body parts from your stem cells, because they're finding that your immune system won't really attack those parts the way they'll attack like a transplanted kidney or a transplanted heart or something like that. If you grow it from your own DNA, they kind of accept the fact that it's part of your body. So, one day that was actually part of a science fiction series way back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, when Larry Niven was writing his Known Space series. Part of the Known Space series revolved around what they called organ legging. And organ legging, excuse me, my lips are getting very dry. I'm talking all the time. It involved a future where, like I said, you could actually transplant anything without a lot of difficulty. The problem you ran into was that there was more of a demand for organs than there were organs. And not just hearts and livers and kidneys, but like arms, eyes, stuff like that. Legs, feet, because you could literally transplant anything. So you had what they call organ leggers, who basically would kidnap people off the street and start, they would just use them for parts, and they'd sell the parts to body banks, clandestinely, because the body banks needed to be filled. And a lot of his early stories revolved around the fact that, transplants were a common thing, and there was a transplant crisis because people couldn't get parts fast enough. And one of his stories dealt with a colony. It was actually a novel, dealt with a colony around Tau Ceti, where an elite group basically controlled access to all the organs on the planet. And they did everything they could to keep themselves alive, because they found out that, if you get a new heart, you can extend your life maybe another 50, 60 years. So there were people who were living like well beyond the point of when you would think you would die. And they were basically harvesting the rest of the colonists in order to, stay alive. Well, then what ended up happening was it was discovered, the title was called The Gift from Earth. It was discovered that on Earth they had found a way to clone body parts, and it could be done cheaply. So organ legging and keeping people under the tyranny of, if you jaywalk, we're going to kill you and take your body parts, which was something that Niven had in one of his other short stories, where you basically, you got the death penalty for stuff like too many parking tickets, and just so they could harvest your organs. Well, now you didn't have to worry about that, because you could grow like 100 hearts in no time, and people could have as many organ transplants as they wanted. There you go. And that broke the tyranny on the colony. That, and the fact that they used a nuclear exhaust drive. They used, some guy managed to get onto the spacecraft that had brought them to the planet, that had like a nuclear, I sounded like George Bush there for a moment, nuclear fission drive for landing, and torched it up and killed a bunch of the ruling elite with the drive before falling off a mountain into the down into the depths of the planet that was sort of like Venus. The only place they could live on this planet was a mountain that had a summit about the size of the state of California, and that was the only habitable spot on the planet. So there you go. Niven did a lot of that. His known space worlds, if you ever go and read some of his work from that period, his known space worlds were sort of like, yeah, we can live on these planets, but it's not going to be pleasant. Tau Ceti was Mount, look at that. You lived on a mountain the size of state of California. There was another planet called Canyon, which had low air density, with the exception of this gigantic canyon, which was like, it was like 5 or 6 miles deep and like 30 or 40 miles long. And the air density in the canyon was enough that people could live there. So you had a bustling population of several million people living in this canyon. They lived right on the edges of the canyon and stuff. It could be done. And a lot of the planets that he had were like that. It was because, as he stated, they sent out probes looking for habitable planets, and they would happen to find habitable zones on the planet, and they'd say, "Here you go." And this was during the time when you sent colonists to a star 11 light years away, it generally took about 50 years to get there. So it was a one-way trip. Because they'd put everybody in suspended animation and then wake them up when they got to the planet. So it was basically a one-way trip. You had enough fuel to get to the star, and that was it. Shit happens. Yeah, that was before they invented faster than light. We didn't actually invent it. In the known space series, it was actually purchased from a group of aliens. It was actually purchased from a group of aliens who then built the first faster than light ship and flew it back to Earth in like 6 days. I think it was like, I'd have to go back and check, but I think the quantum drive that they had the FTL drive they had could actually go like 3 light years in a day. That was before they developed the Quantum Drive Mark II, which could go a light year in 75 minutes. And they realized that because of the time it would take you to get out of a solar system and get to some place where you could activate the drive, because you couldn't activate it in a deep gravity well, it would tear the ship apart. So like they said, you could go anywhere in the solar system in 13 hours, but not less than 12. Because it was basically like it would take you 6 hours to get to the jump point. You activate the drive, you turn it off an hour later, and you spend another you turn it off an hour later and you spend another 6 hours going down to the planet of the star you're traveling to. It was pretty funny. I liked it. I loved the known space series. It was really good. Niven and Jerry Pournelle He wrote a bunch of books together: Mote in God's Eye, Lucifer's Hammer, Oath of Fidelity. My favorite was actually Inferno, which dealt with a science fiction writer who died and went to Dante's Hell. I read through that book dozens of times. I loved it. I actually would like to see them do that as a movie, because they updated it was actually Dante's Inferno, and they updated it. But I loved it. I love that book. I love Niven and Pownell. Jerry Pournelle, as David Gerrold once said, he was a really kind, sweet guy. Politically, him and I would have never gotten along. And David even said he never got along with Jerry Pournelle. And most writers who were politically way to the left had trouble with Jerry, because Jerry was, rather right-wing. But they said Jerry was also a really nice guy. He had one of the stories David Gerrold told when Jerry Pournelle died a few months back was that for decades, Jerry Pournelle and Harlan Ellison basically had this gigantic feud going, to the point where they wouldn't talk to one another. Of course, Jerry was extremely, extremely conservative, and Harlan is extremely, extremely liberal, and they just never saw eye to eye. Well, Harlan's been in poor health now for probably about 10 years. He's in his 80s now, and he jokes about the fact that any minute now I could die, but for some reason, the universe has decided to keep me alive a little longer. And he was in the hospital. I think it was when he had suffered a stroke. And he was in the hospital, and David Gerrold was visiting him, and he heard that they got word that Jerry Pournelle wanted to come up and talk to Harlan. And they said, Harlan was basically rolling his eyes like, oh shit, what does this guy want? Does he just want to gloat over my deathbed? What is going on? And they said, finally, okay, let Jerry come up. And Jerry basically said, let's just put aside everything right now. I want to see how you're doing. Let's just put aside whatever. No, I'm not going to York practice. Sorry. We don't have it today. This says, just basically let's put aside everything that's gone on before and let's talk. And apparently they talked for well over an hour, and talked about writing and books and novels and different movies and stuff like that. And the story was, at the end of it, Harlan was pretty much smiling when it was all said and done, because, he had this chance to sit with Jerry, and Jerry was generally concerned about him, He said, Jerry really was, I want to see you get better. I want to see you get back out there. It's not your time to go yet. Don't worry. And, Jerry, of course, went before Harlan. So, and I do believe Harlan had a few kind words to say about Jerry when he went. Jerry was really one of the first science fiction writers to write on a computer, which is something that should be noted. He really was. He was an expert with computers. He loved them. And, he led the way, more or less. Because I'm doing this on a computer. I don't write like him, but, can't all be a master. Some of us hope for the best. So, but I'm still working on things in my head. The kids have not died, and this week I truly mean this. I'm actually going to try to sit down and start working on the last scene I worked on, where I'd gotten about 500 words into the scene, and then just I can't do this, because the depression is getting a little bit more manageable now. So I'm hoping, against all hope, I'll actually have an excerpt or two for you this coming week. Because I'm running out of shit to reblog. Let's just put it that way. I'm running out of shit to reblog. I think that's what it's coming down to. I really do need to get back into writing. Yeah. I know. I've said that plenty of times before. But depression, In 2 weeks' time, I could be ready to go off my balcony if I don't certify. I'm going to be really upset. But for now, my outlook is I can do this. I've got 7 practices. I can do this. So let's just do it. Let's just get her done. So I hope soon I can sit here and go, hey, guess what? I did. Okay. Well, that's almost 40 minutes. So since it's almost 40 minutes, this is as good a time as any to say goodbye, and I hope you have a great weekend. Take care. See you around.